Thank you to Brilliant for sponsoring a portion of today's video. Today we're talking about envy in friendships, and particularly I want to take more of the approach of if you are the person who's feeling envious of a friend of yours, because I did a poll on my community page and it seems like you guys are interested in that. A lot of you might actually be struggling with feeling envious of others rather than being the object of somebody's envy. So let's get started. Now, just as a reminder, jealousy and envy are two different but related emotions. Jealousy is when you're afraid that something or somebody you care about is about to get taken away, so you're afraid that somebody's going to take away your partner, whereas envy is wanting what somebody else has. And I think the reason these two often get confused is because when people find themselves in romantic triangles where one person wants somebody who's taken, they feel envious towards the person who has that partner and jealousy with regards to the partner that they want. So that's why I think the two kind of get entangled. And today we're talking about envy, when somebody else has something that you want and it pisses you off. First, let's talk about some signs that a person is envious of their friend. And if you do any of these things, there might be some underlying envy there for you to recognize. If you find that you're often not happy for your friend's successes or their wins, if you can't really be bothered to celebrate their wins, if it's easier for you to be there for them when things are harder rather than when things are going really well for them, that could be a sign that actually it pisses you off when things are going well for them. So for example, chronically not being there for their birthday or for their graduation, for their wedding, not congratulating them when really wonderful things are happening in their lives, getting annoyed when they're the center of attention. It's interesting, I've heard from a lot of people, and this has been my experience as well, that weddings are a huge sign of figuring out who's an envious friend. I know for me in 2023, I had just a lot of really major life events and a lot of really happy, successful wins in life. And I did pay close attention to the people who event after event after event were not there, or if they were there, were kind of dragging their feet. And I think that's why wedding season in particular is a huge friendship breakup instigator, because you never really realize who is there for you and who is not, as when things are going really, really well for you. When things are going really, really badly for you too, but I think it becomes a lot more pronounced when things are going really well, who's envious. Also, if you find yourself feeling very competitive, always trying to one-up your friend, that is a sign that there's some insecurity there that's getting triggered by their successes. If there are things about this friend that annoy you, or that maybe you've gossiped or considered a character flaw, that are really not a character flaw. For example, I was reading this Reddit post the other day where somebody was talking about, I really hate this specific person. And they gave reasons this person's privileged, she has a lot of money, and she's I don't agree with her parenting style with her kids. And the parenting style was she's very gentle and kind to her kids. And a lot of the responses, as you can imagine, were saying it kind of sounds like you're the problem, because it kind of sounds like you do dislike this person over nothing. It does kind of sound like you are ascribing these character flaws when you've not really described any reason to dislike this person. If you find yourself kind of grasping at straws for things that annoy you about this person, there could be some envy there. If you also find yourself often being passive-aggressive, being, backhanded, giving double-edged compliments, or often making deprecating jokes at their expense, gossiping, being two-faced, being super friendly to their face and then talking ill about them behind their back. That can reflect envy as well. If you often find yourself imitating the other person, I think this is often easier to notice when it's happening to someone else than to recognize when you're doing it. To other people, it can often be very, very transparent when somebody is trying to imitate another person, to the point where sometimes with some of the people like that in my life, I can literally predict to a T what they're going to try next. And then within a couple of weeks, it happens. But I think if you're the one experiencing it, it's more challenging to recognize, I'm being kind of a copycat in this, and this regard towards this person, because you're just kind of confused. You actually really admire this person, but you don't realize it because you just feel angry. And of course, if you try to sabotage the friend, that could also be a sign that there's some envy there because you just don't want things to go well for them. So you might give them bad relationship advice, for instance, that you know is going to backfire. Before I go into where envy comes from, I want to thank the sponsor of today's video, Brilliant. When we talk about envy, really what's underlying it is low self-esteem. And one thing that can really help if you're struggling with envy and if you have low self-esteem is to build up your self-efficacy and focus on doing things that are important to you so that you don't have time to think about what other people are doing with their lives. Brilliant is an app where you can learn by doing, with thousands of interactive lessons in math, data analysis, programming, and AI. So Brilliant could be good for you if you're a student, for instance, and you're in math class, but you're not quite understanding everything fully, or if you're in a math-related field and there's some blind spot where you need a little extra math skills for your professional development, or if maybe you need it for your business. If you opened a business and then you realized, oh, there are these math skills that I didn't realize would be involved that I need to learn in order to make this profitable. I know for me, Brilliant would have been really handy when I was still in school because I didn't always have the best math professors. They didn't always explain math to me in the way that I most needed it. And I think it's so valuable that in this day and age, we have these tools at our fingertips and we can teach ourselves from anywhere so that we don't need to fall behind. Or even if you're just looking for something to build problem-solving skills or to keep your mind sharp, Brilliant is great for that as well. Brilliant helps you build understanding from the ground up with hands-on problem solving and just letting you play around with different concepts, because the best way to learn something is by doing, by practicing, rather than just listening and trying to absorb passively. Created by an award-winning team of teachers, researchers, and professors from MIT, Caltech, Duke, Microsoft, Google, and more. So here's how you use it. For instance, let's say that you want to just get really good at math skills in general. You can build and use formulas to solve real problems in business and everyday life. You can enhance your visual and spatial problem-solving skills. And you can focus on the essentials with lessons that highlight the most useful and applicable math concepts. Try Brilliant for free for 30 days by scanning the QR code or clicking my link below. And if you use that link, you'll also get 20% off annual premium. Thank you again to Brilliant, and let's get back to envy. So where does envy come from? I think people often misunderstand envy. Envy is not just, I want what this person has. Envy, in the way that we usually mean it, is rather, I want what this person has, and I don't believe that I can have it too. And that is really the crux of the issue, right? Because if you see something that somebody else has, let's say a cute dress, and you can have that cute dress too. Let's say it's not particularly expensive, or even if it is, you can afford it. You're not going to get mad just seeing somebody else have a cute dress because you're like, oh, cute dress, I'm gonna get that myself. But if it's, let's say, a really expensive dress that you know you can't afford and you really want it, then yeah, you might feel envious. And envy often takes one of two routes. The first one is kind of just low mood, sad, hopeless. And the other one is the more stereotypical expression of envy and the more malignant one, which is when you start to get really angry and resentful and bitter. This is the more insidious one that will, in addition to really deteriorating at your self-esteem, also deteriorate your other relationships because you're expressing all this anger and bitterness towards someone that didn't do anything to you. Now, why would you think that you can't have something that somebody else has that you want? One reason is the odds are truly stacked against you for some reason. Your friend is a millionaire and you're living paycheck to paycheck. It's not impossible, but it's going to feel very difficult to overcome your circumstances and to get to where they are. It's going to take a lot of time. And so seeing such a huge contrast between your life circumstances and their life circumstances can be very difficult because it's I don't think I can get where they are because I have so far to travel to get to where they are. Another reason is you have low self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is basically, do you think that you can accomplish the things that you set out to do? If you were put down a lot as a child, made to feel incompetent in some way, if you don't have a really good track record of making your dreams come true for whatever reason, or if maybe you're just not currently in a good place in your life and everything just feels hopeless, then you probably don't have very good self-efficacy, and that probably means that you're going to start feeling envious towards other people because that component of I can't have that is particularly strong. Sometimes, though, envy is just born of a cognitive distortion. A really common one that I hear with envy is this person's life is all just sunshine and butterflies. It's likely not. So for example, I, a couple months ago, was talking in therapy about how I have this deep sorrow and envy about friends of mine or acquaintances of mine who live near family, because they have all their important people in one spot and they have all this support readily available to them. And when I see their posts on social media, it just seems so lovely and so perfect. And my therapist actually pointed out that those Instagram highlights, they're not a reflection of the true messiness of family life. They're not showing the drama that happened, the tension that happened behind the scenes. They're just showing the picture perfect part. And usually I think I'm pretty good about recognizing that, of course, people are only going to post the happy parts to social media. But I think in this regard, I had completely forgotten, and I was operating under this cognitive distortion of other people's lives, other people's family situations are just sunshine and roses and bunnies all the time. And actually, right after that happened, I spoke to one of my friends who I was envious towards and who I felt how cool that she gets to live near family. And I found out that all of my assumptions were completely wrong, and there was actually a lot going on behind the scenes that I was completely oblivious to. And so it just proved my therapist's point. But this belief that everyone else's life is just perfect, it's a very black and white perspective, and honestly, it can set us up to be unempathic. No one's life is perfect. When we assume that other people's lives are perfect, we close ourselves off from seeing their pain, and that reduces our empathy for them. And sometimes even if they're saying to our face, no, actually, I'm really struggling in this area and my life is very far from perfect, if we're feeling envious because of this cognitive distortion, we're just not able to hear them and support them in the way that they deserve. I did also go through this one time when I was trying to communicate to a friend, hey, I'm really struggling in this area of my life. And they were just completely dismissing it and saying oh no, you're gonna be fine. You're totally fine, don't worry. And then I found out later that they were going behind my back to other friends and talking about how perfect the specific area of my life is. And I realized, oh, they totally did not hear any of what I just told them. Another common distortion that can lead to envy is this person just effortlessly gets everything they want. Some of life is luck, but that does not mean that people also don't work really hard for the things that they want. I think sometimes this cognitive distortion can honestly tie in with laziness, because if you don't want to work hard for what you want, you're going to assume other people aren't working hard either, that you're just unlucky and they're just lucky. They happen to have what you want. They don't put in any work to get there. And it's just unfair because that opportunity didn't fall into your lap instead. It's harder to actually acknowledge, oh, I actually don't really want to put in the work to get what I want. And honestly, if you were to get in touch with how badly you want something, you might be able to put in that work. You might be able to realize no, I actually want to really motivate myself to get this thing. But you can't do that if you don't get in touch with these feelings. And this ties into the next section of today's video, which is, what do you do with these feelings of envy? How can we move forward from them? Emotions, like always, are messengers. They're there for a reason, to signal something that needs your attention. And in the case of envy, it's a signal to you that, first of all, there's something you want, and secondly, you don't believe that you have all the tools you need to get it. Starting off with the first component, there's something you want. Great! Good. Desire is a sign of vitality. I would much rather you have a strong desire for something than be apathetic, because apathy is far harder to overcome in my experience. So lean into that desire and get really clear on why you want this, and make sure that it's aligned with your values. For example, let's say that your friend has an expensive bag and you think, I want an expensive bag. Okay, why? Well, I want to be stylish too. Again, but why does being stylish mean this specific bag? Well, no, but this bag is definitely stylish, so I already know that it's really accepted in our social circle. Oh, okay, now you're talking. So what you really want is social acceptance. And why do you think that buying this one particular bag is going to be the way to get it? Is that true? Is it going to get you social acceptance, or are there better ways to go about this value? Really kind of challenge yourself and interrogate yourself and keep asking yourself, why do I want this? And why? And why? And why? The second component, like I said, is you don't believe you have all the tools that you need to make this dream come true. Not every dream is achievable. If you want to own a yacht, only a very small minority of people are going to be able to have a yacht. Or in my case, I want to be a best-selling author. That's my goal in life. I want to be on the New York Times bestsellers list. That's a very ambitious goal. But there's one thing I know for sure. The people that don't believe it's possible for them will for sure never get what they want. Some of the people that believe it's possible for them might get what they want, some of them might not. The people that don't think it's an option, most definitely will not happen for them. The mindset of a winner is, I'm going to make sure I get this, and the mindset of a loser is, I'm never going to have what she has. Your envy is basically shooting you in the foot. Your only shot at overcoming the ickiness of this feeling is if you stop listening to this self-defeating narrative that you can't have this thing that you want. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. It doesn't matter what's realistic right now. You have to convince yourself that you're going to get it and then actually follow up with action. If you really, really, truly want this thing and it's really aligned with your values, then go get it. Only then are you going to become a less envious person. Envy is just a signal to us that we value something. Like I don't feel envious, for instance, when somebody gets 1 million views on a YouTube video, because at the end of the day, that's not that important to me. But I do get sometimes envious when I see that somebody is automatically a best-selling author, because that to me is something that I really, really value. And that's not bad. Lean in to what makes you envious. Lean into your desires and then go for it. And for God's sake, please don't respond to envy with anger. Get in touch with the sadness underneath it. Remember, I said there are 2 ways you can respond to envy: with sadness or with anger. The anger is basically just a secondary emotion to the sadness. The anger is usually there to mask the sadness. So the people who respond to envy with anger are those who are not really in touch with their emotions, who lack self-awareness. There's nothing wrong with feeling the sadness underneath your envy. Get in touch with it. Get in touch with how badly you want something and how much loss you feel that you don't have that thing, because that will motivate you towards action. It will motivate you to go get it. Best of luck in getting what you want, and thank you again to Brilliant for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to check them out. Take care.